Good evening and welcome to the Talk Right podcast. We've got a pretty good show lined up for you tonight. We have a team of narrators. First, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Nick Sullivan. Nick is always on the show with me. And with us also is Christine Niles, author of the Shark Key Adventure Series. Is that right?
That is right.
Nick, why don't you introduce our narrators?
All right. Well, we have a dual narration team, a male-female narration team, and we will learn why that was chosen. Brian Messlar is with us now, and Kelsey O'Dowd will be joining us shortly.
Just walked in the door.
Oh, very shortly. All righty. Well, Christine, why don't we start with you? Most of the folks who are authors tend to just pick one guy or one gal to do the whole series. What led you to choose a team?
Well, it was a hard decision. I started thinking about audio probably a little over a year ago. I knew I wanted to get the series into audio, and with having a female main character, I actually called you, Nick, and said, well, can you narrate this, or should I have a female? And you very professionally said you should have a female. So I started down that road, and I started talking to people. I got referrals. I auditioned people. I started looking for, and I just, as I was listening to females doing male characters, I just wasn't in love. And I have, even though my book has a female main character and has several female characters, I also have a lot of male characters. And so as I was talking through and listening to what the females narrators were doing, like all of their male characters kind of sounded the same, and I just wasn't loving it. And I listened to a couple of audiobooks that were done with dual narrators that had, a female doing the narration and the female voices and had a male doing the male voices. And I'm like, huh. And then a friend of mine had used Brian and said, oh, well, his fiance also does narration. Maybe you should talk to them about doing, something as a team. And so we ended up talking, and they did an audition piece, and I'm like, this is it. This is perfect. This is what I want. This is and so I'd been searching for probably 6 months, auditioning people on and off, saying, oh, this is too hard. Oh yeah, this is going to be, I can't find anything I like. And then within just seconds, when Brian and Kelsey sent their audition over, I'm like, okay, this is it. It's perfect.
Excellent.
That's how we found them.
Now, how do you divide it up? Do you have people dropping in individual lines of dialogue, or is it done by point of view?
It's done by point of view. So most of my scenes are from my female protagonist's point of view, but then I occasionally will have a chapter here. About one every 4 or 5 chapters is from the antagonist's point of view. And in many cases, that is a male. So when it is the male POV, then Brian reads all the narration, and Kelsey will drop in if there are any female dialogue characters there.
Well, let me ask Brian, do you do these in sequence? Do you both sit in there and do the book together so that the drop-ins happen right then? Or do you have to do a separate session and then paste?
We ended up, we tried both methods, and the studio that I ended up building is big enough to fit us both comfortably for a decent amount of time. But the option that ended up just, I think, making both of us feel just the least frustrated, or potentially just like it was the most efficient, was when we would go in after the fact and add plugs. So our method of doing that, whoever's point of view it is will narrate the chapter. Oh, here she is.
Hi.
There's the female and the main character voice of Lost Key, Kelsey.
Thank you for having us. Sorry I interrupted.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, so what we'll do when one of us is narrating, whoever's POV it is, for the chapter, they'll read through, and when they get to the opposite gender's dialogue, they'll go, bah, really loud. So we get just this insane vocal spike in the audio that we can see.
Snap your
And
finger.
then like, wait a couple seconds or something like
Okay.
that. And
That's a
and then
really
later
cool
when
idea.
I'm editing through, I can just kind of find these little spikes and plug them in, no matter whose dialogue it was.
Okay.
Luckily, we never left a bot in there.
No. But it was, I mean, sometimes Brian is a really silly guy. So sometimes I'd be going through and it would be like, like some sort of crazy thing. And I'd be like, what were you doing in there, you crazy guy?
Oh my goodness.
Well, I've done everything on my end now, so I can talk, I think. So Chris, when I first read your first book, I didn't know you were a woman. I saw this cool book by Chris Niles, and I thought, oh, it's set in Shark Key. I know where Shark Key is. And I thought, well, this ought to be good. And I started reading it, and it was kind of confusing at first because I wasn't expecting a female character. And then all of a sudden, everything just started to click in place, and the action in it was really, really smooth and very well written. I really enjoy your books.
Thank you. And I am in fact female. and it's
love
funny
it.
because even though the genre we need more women in the genre, I didn't pick Chris so much because it was gender neutral as just because it fit on the cover in one line. And if you spelled out Christine, the text was a lot smaller and it looked like crap on the cover. So that's really why I did that.
That's why I stack mine on my covers, because
There you go.
Wayne Stennett's just too long for a single line.
Well, Chris Niles stacks nice and easily because they're the same number of letters.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Oh,
I
there
didn't
you
even
go.
think about that.
So yeah, because when I wrote my first thriller, we tried Christine and I tried CM, and they both looked terrible. And Chris Niles is just a nice even stack, and so I'm like, and I hate being called Chris. I actually don't like it.
Good for us to know.
Yes.
But I've gotten
Yeah.
used to it. So, and it's a really easy way to tell whether people are like coming from my personal life or coming from my professional life now, because the professional people all call me Chris and the personal people all call me Christine. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know where this is coming
That
from.
seems kind of opposite of what would be normal. Normally, if you're professional, you
Yeah.
go by Christine
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever
you get the
your
nickname.
given name is, Robert instead of Bob.
Yeah.
Christine, where are you from in Florida originally?
I grew up on the Central West Coast. So actually just north of Clearwater in a little bitty, well, not so little burg anymore, called Palm Harbor. So it's just in between Clearwater and Tarpon Springs.
Mhm.
And if anybody's really familiar with that area, if you know where Caladesi Island is, Curlew Road becomes the causeway out to there, and we were 5 houses off of Curlew. So I grew up in that area, went to Dunedin High School, and that area when I was growing up was much, much less developed. We were at the very north edge of the development of Pinellas County. If you go back there now, it's developed all the way up into Pasco, and everything's concrete and nothing looks the same as it did. But I mean, I grew up on Lake Tarpon and, rooting around in all the parks and all the lakes and out on the beach. And my brother was he was 7 years younger than me, and he got his captain's license when he turned 18, but he was boating by himself when he was like 9. At one point, the Coast Guard pulled him. The Coast Guard stopped him one day. I want to say he was maybe 10 or 11. And they're like, what are you should not be out here, by yourself. I think he had one of his little buddies with him, and they were in a little bass boat, and they were out fishing. And he's like, you ask me any question at all about any regulation. And if I miss any of them, you can call my parents. And he knew everything out of the whatever the regulations are for boating, for recreational boating. And they're like, okay, kid, you know what you're doing. Have a nice day.
Nice.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But I was his chaperone for a lot of things before my parents would let him do things by himself. So I hung out with him a lot. I went fishing and boating and all the things that, you know, teenage girls wouldn't necessarily think were cool, but I didn't do teenage girl things either. So it was, you know, I just grew up on that kind of stuff. I would have much rather been sitting in my room reading a Travis McGee novel than actually being out in the sun, because, you know, this paleness turns bright red and then peels off. But yeah, it was just the best place to grow up. Well, the only other better place would be, you know, further south, you know, down in the Everglades or on the Keys. But it was a great place to grow up, and I left my heart there. And I moved to Indiana and met a guy and bought property. And once you buy property in Indiana, you can't afford to go anyplace else.
But based, your brother sounds fascinating, and I imagine you've slipped some aspects of him into your lead heroine of the series, right?
Oh yeah, Kate is a big bunch of Adam. A lot of her, you know, a lot of what I've learned about how conch life really is from Adam. He lives in Key West now. He lives out on Stock Island. So I go down and visit a lot. He lived in an Airstream in a campground on Stock Island for 4 years before he finally bought a townhouse on the golf course. But yeah, he is a lot of Kate, especially in terms of abandoning the corporate life and, you know, what the parents wanted for him and all of that. So that part of Kate is Adam. And there's also there's a lot of just what I wish that, you know, we all kind of wish that we could just chuck everything and, you know, drive south till the road runs out. And so there's a lot of that in Kate, and so she's kind of cobbled together.
Is my mic working?
Yeah.
We're checking in. Do we have technical difficulties, Wayne?
I'm having technical problems still, y'all, so bear with me.
Okay. Well, I'll ask another question here. Brian and Kelsey, I understand a little bird told me that you do a particular genre together with some frequency. And I am wondering if you have special names that you use for that, or whether you use your regular names.
Oh no, we're straight up just Brian and Kelsey. No shame, no shame in getting work done and doing the thing.
That's right.
But yeah, that was when we first started. We had a feeling that, for me particularly, because my voice is kind of a timbre,
And
velvety, smooth, sort of sultry. We thought, and also with my acting experience, that I would be pulled for titles like that. And sure enough, the first offer I received was for a contemporary romance novel. And then from there, it was a romance series. And then from there, it was erotica. And then Brian and I were like, I don't know if we want to continue just going down this road, because soon this is going to be all we're doing is erotica, which is fine, but it's some of the work has been very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Eye-opening.
Yes. And yeah, that's definitely been a majority of what I did even prior to us two partnering up on stuff. But that's, from what I can tell, that is there's different levels of the erotica-ness, but those are a majority of the titles out there from what we can see.
Yeah, I've never done erotica, but Jim Steele has.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jim Steele.
I like it. I can feel
I just myself, everybody. There you go.
And then you get my stories where it takes till book 4 for Kate to even get a kiss.
Well, and that was
You gotta, I mean, you can't jump the shark. You gotta.
Not in Shark Key. Definitely not in Shark Key.
Well, and it was such a blessing, such an exciting opportunity for us to have the opportunity to go about and do a book that is that's not the focus first and foremost. It's not romance, it's action and it's adventure, but it's also a strong female character who's like not in it for that. And I've been playing or reading women who are just in it for just that for so long. I was like, I'm ready for more facets. I'm ready for a deeper level of womanhood than just
She was done with the damsels.
I'm done with the damsels.
And Kate is not a damsel.
No, not by
Definitely
any
not.
means. She is the opposite of a damsel, the anti-damsel.
Especially not in chapter 37 of this next one. Ooh, he's an action movie hero.
She is. Things get wild. They get crazy.
Well,
Right.
does she have like a
Yeah, that begs the question: who is Kate based on? I mean, everybody bases their characters on somebody.
Yeah, Kate is very much my brother. And you were having technical difficulties as we were talking about him a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of my little brother in Kate. A lot of his adventure and kind of the way he's abandoned the corporate life to go live the conch life, and which is hilarious because he actually just took a job this year teaching school on Key West. So
Really?
maybe Kate will start teaching at some point. But yeah, he's done. I mean, he got his boat captain's license when he was 18. He's got his private pilot's license. He rode competitive equestrian for a while. I mean, he's just done all kinds of stuff that other people would just kind of dream about doing. And so he's never let anything get in his way. And that was a spirit that I wanted in Kate.
Oh, perfect. Oh, and by the way, you captured Billy really well.
Billy. Yes.
Billy
I mean,
Rainwater.
Yeah, and
I
actually,
forgot to
Brian
heard
and Kelsey
about
are going to be
Great.
they're going to be doing Billy's chapters pretty soon here. So Nick, any tips you have on voicing Billy? Because Brian's going to have to do him.
Yeah.
Well, what I noticed the way Wayne would write him, I generally give him a very stoic, not overly animated delivery, because you can't always tell if he's joking. You can't always tell if he's really mad about something. He keeps stuff close to his vest.
Okay, very steady.
So yeah, and it might come across as this sort of wisdom, but more often than not, he's just keeping stuff inside. But when people talk about him, they talk about him being a badass. So it's not that he's not got all that fire inside. He just doesn't spew it.
Yeah. Very, very contained, very steady.
He's the chieftain of the Calusa in South Florida. So, yeah, he's got that kind of Native American attitude. Doesn't get real excited about things, and when he does what he has to do, and it's over, and he goes back to, oh, that was very good.
Excellent. All right. Before this podcast or this Zoom is over, you're gonna have to give me a sample of some like Billy, like things Billy would say, and then I'll just kind of listen and I'll analyze and I'll store it in my backlog for later.
Well, Wayne will probably have to tell you what he says, and then I could give you the Billy on it. But
There you go. There you go. It's a dream or teamwork makes the dream work. There it is.
He
where-
calls Jesse
Brian-
Kemosabe.
Brian and Kelsey, where are the two of you from?
Well, I'm from Chicago Ridge initially, which is like southwest suburbs of Chicago, and Kelsey is from Elgin, which is
It's basically, we're both equidistant from Chicago, but I'm
Yes.
35 miles west and he's 35 miles east.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I have been to both towns. Jesse Kemosabe.
yeah. We and now we both live in Chicago, and we're like a mile from our lake, and we love just hanging out there, spending most of our time on Chicago's beachfront.
Now, can you fire up we've in our past podcasts with narrators, we have discussed dialect kryptonite. Like, what is your
Okay.
kryptonite? Now, mine is Chicago. I have turned down jobs where the main character is Chicago and they wanted Chicago, and I'm like, get someone from Chicago. It's just going to sound terrible. Can you both flip on a Chicago?
I
Or
think
do
maybe
people
too
there
much.
not really talk
Yeah.
that way?
Yeah, I guess
Sometimes-
we've got it kind of going on without even knowing it.
certain things. I think it depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to like my Uncle Michael, my Uncle Paul, we're talking about throwing some sausage on the grill. We're all gonna sit around and we're gonna get our plastic bags and we're gonna go to the Jewel. So I can, if it's just but if I'm talking to other people, then it goes away. Though we have heard a few people in our audiobooks notice that the way we say God, we say God.
Yeah.
We don't say God, we say God. So we're trying to work that one out.
And
There's
of course,
a very
Chicago.
famous narrator who says calm and palm.
Home.
Home.
He's like big famous, but I'm like, dude, you are right on the border of Canada. I could tell right there.
Yeah, how about that calm over there, man? It's pretty easy, huh? And of course, as Chicagoans, we all have to have our like stereotypical Chicago guy accent. You know, we see someone like that guy's like, hey, I just want a couple of burgers and I'm just gonna be on my way, okay? just leave me alone, okay? I don't want to talk to anybody about this.
Now, Chris, are you getting ideas for some characters you need in upcoming books?
Kind of, but the funny part of it is the prologue of book 1 is Chicago, and the
It is.
prologue of book 1 is an Al Capone gangster stealing money and running, and his little showgirl, his working girl girlfriend coming with, and so they got to do the full on Chicago.
It was
We
perfect.
did. It was a lot of
Serendipitous.
fun. And we
Capone's
actually,
buried like 10 minutes from us.
yeah, we live, the cemetery where he is buried is like 10 minutes from our house.
That's the same
So it was
cemetery
a-
my grandmother's buried in. My granny's there.
Really?
Yeah, my Grammy and my grandfather are there.
That's so
Rose Hill?
serendipitous.
Rose Hill Cemetery.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful
I
cemetery.
haven't been there in a long time. I drove past it last time I was in town, but yeah. I
Then
didn't
you
know
were right by us. Should have popped in for
So
a visit.
serendipitous. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
and
let me ask, Chris, I understand you have a novelette to bring in folks to the fold, and that you might have narrated that yourself. Is that correct?
Well, there are a couple. I have one that I use as kind of my primary getting people, that I give to people when they join my VIP reader list. And I'm actually recording that one now, but I wrote a Christmas special because I love writing little short freebies for my VIP readers, because it's super fun. It's fast. Like the one for Christmas, I wrote in like 36 hours. And then sent it to, I wrote it on Christmas Eve. I wrote it the day before Christmas, the 23rd and 24th. I had a friend of mine, actually the friend that introduced me to Brian and Kelsey, he edited it on Christmas morning and I sent it out Christmas afternoon. But it was basically Die Hard on a boat. And I mean, it was just a little bit over an hour, and I love to learn how to do new things. And so I wanted, in doing all this audio and talking to you and talking to Brian and Kelsey and all of this, I'm like, I want to try this. And I think it was right after I had recorded the author's note for Lost Key. And Kelsey said something very generous, which I'm sure was not true, that my voice was lovely. And
I would not lie.
She's a true lady.
And I'm like, I should try recording the Christmas short. And so I kind of sat down and read it and just played around with it. It gave me a lot of appreciation for what Brian and Kelsey and you, Nick, do as professionals. I think it's really, for me, I love to try the things the pros are doing so that I can really understand the value that the pros are bringing. And let me tell you that definitely did teach me that, because it's hard. It's really hard. It takes a lot of time. I mean, I recorded every chapter, I think 3 times. And it was before I learned that if I flubbed up, I could just clap my hands to get that nice little audio spike and see it. Big bang, pause, record it again. So I recorded 3 times straight through, and then kind of tried to Frankenstein everything together into something. But I also, the time and the skill and the effort that it takes to produce a really high quality pro recording is, I mean, it just gave me another layer of appreciation for that. But also, it was fun to do for my readers. And they actually, not a lot of my readers are audio listeners, but I'm trying to kind of work into that space, and they really loved hearing my voice, even where I flubbed up. They appreciated hearing me do that. And I mean, it was under an hour. And so I sent it out as a free download for them. And it was super fun. And I am going to do it for Lost Palm, which is my main kind of reader gift. But it definitely made me appreciate what you guys do.
I gotta say, just audio engineering stuff in general, and just that whole side of it gave me a deep appreciation for like DJs and like sound, like people who just are making like everyone's like, DJs and electronic music artists have no talent. But then just like when you're trying to click and splice and chop and put things together and make sure it sounds crispy and not clipped, it's like, these guys are some pretty slick audio engineers, even if, most of us don't see behind the computer. It's, it's wild.
There are so many aspects to narration that people don't consider, and I certainly didn't consider until I started coming from a theater background. Like I never knew how many noises my mouth made. Just my mouth just making noises, gurgles all the time. And I'm like, okay, so I have to breathe before I press record, and I can't breathe until I start to talk, and I can't move my tongue in my mouth, and I have to make sure that everything's still. And that's just the performance stuff. And then you get into making sure that for the moments when you're whispering and you're having a more intimate scene, that you're not in the next scene when you're yelling and screaming at someone, that it doesn't like throw the reader or the listener out of the loop. So it really is such a dynamic process. And I think when it comes out sounding so fantastic, you don't think about all the work that went into it because it is so good. But when you actually are like, no, wait a minute, how do we go? What? They had to do what to make this happen? I mean, it's just really wild.
There's a learning curve.
Yeah.
Sure.
The first chapter I recorded and listened back to, I'm like, that's what breathing sounds like. But like, I sound asthmatic. And then I learned how to breathe, how to stop, how to like take a breath and then pause long enough that then I can see the breath in the waveform and cut it out. And yeah it was, you guys do amazing work. It's hard.
It is. It absolutely is.
There's a learning curve.
It's so fun, but very challenging.
Now, if you're on a sensitive mic, you basically even have to learn how to open your mouth to say the word, because if the moisture in there holds, you'll see this little spike on the waveform.
Yes.
And it will be.
My mouth is really noisy. Even drinking, the lukewarm tea and, all the things that they say to do, I'm still like click, 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 snap, snap.
I came back from a scuba diving trip and had some difficulty with one of my ears, and it went away. But when I recorded that week, I could hear kind of little. I was like, that's my ear. So I had to get these like giant cans. I prefer earbuds, but I put cans on just to cover the dang thing.
Swimmer's ear.
That's crazy. The crazy things we do.
Well, Wayne, do you have any questions?
No, I'm not seeing. Well, this goes back to when we were talking about Billy, but T. Tooks quoted a line where Billy says, "Living is dangerous, Kemosabe. It's dying is the easy part." So if you could voice that in Billy's voice.
Oh, I see.
So you got to remember what he said.
Living is dangerous, Kemosabe. Dying's the easy part.
Living is dangerous, Kemosabe. Dying is the easy part.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right on the money.
The tricky thing is he's a big badass, but so's Jesse. So when they're talking together, I got to make sure that Jesse's got a little more gravel on him.
Okay.
Very good. I definitely see Jim Steele doing very good.
Yeah, Jim Steele. Jim Steele, I smoked back when I did a lot of Jim Steele, so he had even more gravel there.
That changed.
Yeah, it's funny. The dual narrations, half of the dual narrations I do are romance, and they'll ask me, "Well, do you want to bring Jim Steele out of retirement?" And I'll be like, let me just see how moist it all is.
Yeah, let me see how raunchy we're getting.
I'll read for about 20 minutes and I'll email him back. Yeah, Jim Steele. Some of them are fine, you know. I'm like, no, I'm okay with that.
But then others.
Yeah, Jim Steele material.
Don Rich says there's no way I'd try to record anything of mine, and I agree. When I wrote my nonfiction on how I started writing and everything, and I sent it to Nick to record. There's no way I was going to touch that. Not with this hillbilly voice.
I think you should have done it.
Yeah, I could. You know, that's the thing.
The hard part would be just the reading of it, because my eyesight doesn't allow me to read very fast. I'm a very, very slow reader. I have advanced glaucoma. I have to literally look at every single word individually, where most people read and their eyes go over the line and they see peripherally all the words before they get to them. I can't do that. If it's a long word, I have to sound it out because my eyes can't see the whole word.
So do you listen to audiobooks, Wayne? Do you prefer audiobooks to reading?
Not a whole lot. My wife listens to it almost completely. She reads a few paperbacks, mostly nonfiction, but for fiction, she listens to mostly audiobooks. And I've listened to a few. I don't have any time where my hands are doing something that doesn't require my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm writing, it's impossible to listen to another story while you write, something like that. But I'm definitely going to have to get that first one, because I want to hear that Chicago.
Yeah.
If you just want to hear the Chicago, it's on the preview, I think.
Oh, really?
No, it's not. No, I think we did a different chapter for the preview on that, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Oh, yeah, because the preview is the scene where Kate and Whiskey take out the New York gangster wannabe.
Yeah.
Well,
they're in the campground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you've got a longer sample, you can put them up on SoundCloud, and we could put some links to that on the talk.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could just put that chapter up. And since I'm not exclusive, I can do whatever I want.
You a free agent, baby. You live your best life.
If it's not like more than a chapter, I don't really think they mind, because the idea is to get them to. I think Audible's more than happy if you take steps to get people to buy the book.
Reel them in.
I've never heard them having an issue with that.
Yeah. But it's also I'm available at libraries. So like if somebody wants to listen to it and doesn't have an Audible membership, you can have your library order it. So libraries can order it. We're trying to get it through Hoopla. I know it's been Hoopla's approval process has been delayed. Another friend of mine, actually, again, the friend that introduced me to Brian and Kelsey, he writes Lit RPG as Arlo Adams, and Hoopla has picked up 1 out of his 7 books, and the other 6 books are stuck in their ingestion system. So he's finally gotten some help on that. And his book 2 is available on Hoopla and not any of the others. It's really bizarre.
I think mine took quite a while. I have only 1 wide, just the first in the Deep series, just to snag people, and they go, oh, sorry, all the other books, you have to get them at Audible. Have you considered, you've got yours wide, are you going to put it up for Chirp?
Yeah, I am probably going to do Chirp. I'll probably do Chirp after book 2 is out. So there's
get 2 out first. Yeah.
I mean, I love Chirp. I actually pick up a lot of stuff on Chirp, especially new authors, new books that I'd never heard of before. When they come across on Chirp, I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. It's $2.99. Sure, I'll pick it up. And I've jumped into a lot of series that way. And like Wayne, I don't have a whole lot of time where I'm doing something with my hands that doesn't need my brain. I do really well listening when I'm driving, when I'm on road trips, but I don't ever leave my house. So, I mean, I might go 5 minutes down the road to, do a Walmart pickup, to stop in the parking lot and have them load groceries in the back of my car. But that's about all I ever leave. And that was even pre-COVID was all I ever left my house. I am like full on Howard Hughes hermit up here.
The whole world has adapted to what we've been doing for years.
I'm like, this is normal life.
I drive back and forth to the office. It takes 5 minutes to get there and 5 minutes to get home. It would take me 60 days to listen to an audiobook.
Yeah. And so on Chirp, I've picked up a few where then I've read, I've picked up the ebooks or print books of, the later ones in the series from something I've picked up from Chirp. So I actually discover ebook, and I prefer to read, on print or on my Kindle than to listen, just because when I'm listening, my brain just kind of wanders off, and that's where I have to be doing something. Driving is fantastic. So if I drove more, I'd probably listen to more audiobooks. But yeah, I've discovered new series with Chirp. I love Chirp, but I definitely, if I'm going to drop the price of a book to $2.99, I want something full price for them to go to next, for sure.
Yes. Just for our listeners, I think many will know what Chirp is, but Chirp is BookBub's audiobook promotion series. So it's a way of selling quite a few units. You won't be selling it for as much as you would have it on Audible, but I did one, and I think I sold as much in a month as I had sold in 6 months on Audible. So it's effective.
And for listeners, it's a fantastic, for people who listen to a lot of audiobooks, it's a fantastic way to boost your library for not a whole lot of money. And it's chirpbooks.com. Chirp like a little bird chirps, chirpbooks.com. You get on their mailing list. And so every day I get an email that has 2 or 3 different audiobooks on it. And I might pick one up a month or something. But I know a lot of people who get a lot that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend who listens to like 2 audiobooks a day. She runs a ton of errands and does a lot of, and she's constantly got her headphones in and is just always has a book going. And she loves Chirp.
Mm-hmm. I forgot to ask you something when we were asking, you grew up in Florida. Boating is a big thing in your books, but so is diving. Now, where did you do most of your diving?
I actually learned to dive in Fort Wayne, Indiana, of all of the landlocked places to learn to dive. We did, my husband and I did our open water certs in the summer of 2005 and did our cert dives in a 40-degree quarry wearing 7mm wetsuits, 2 pieces, in the middle of July.
You say 40 degrees?
Yes, 40-degree water at 30 feet.
Why?
Because it was the only place to do it. I'm sorry, 40 degrees at 60 feet. It was a little warmer at the surface. But yeah, 7mm 2 pieces. I want to say I had something like 18 pounds of weight on. I mean, it was insane. It was just nuts. But yeah, it was fantastic. Within 2 weeks, I think it was the week after we did our certification dives in the quarry, I was popping into the dive shop to drop some stuff off. And the owner of the dive shop, his son was running, and they had a guy was standing in there who was signed up for a Blackbeard's liveaboard trip. And if anybody has done Blackbeard's trips, they are like camping on the water. It's a 62-foot sailboat with like 22 divers on it. It's all shared cabins, it's shared double bunks. So 4 people to a berth that you can't walk into it. You like have the door open and climb up into your bunk. 30-second showers, and no comfortable seating on it. It's all the fiberglass benches on the hull. But this guy he's like, I can't go. So he looked at me, he's like, you want to go to the Bahamas and go diving? I'm like, sure. He's like, I'd rather have somebody enjoy it than, just have it go to waste. So you want to go. And my husband jumped in. So we got basically a 2-for-1 on this Blackbeards. And 2 weeks after we got our certifications, we were in Bimini and doing 5 dives a day. And it was fantastic. It was blissful. It made me never, ever want to dive that damn quarry ever again.
Oh yeah. There's something about 82-degree water
Yeah.
with visibility of 100 feet that just
Yeah.
grabs you.
Now, if you jump in the quarry on Friday afternoon in July, you might get 25 feet visibility. Maybe. By Sunday afternoon, you're really lucky to get 10 or 12 feet. And they've got all of these, the quarry that we dove in was divers only. And so all the fish were trained that the divers would feed them. So anytime you get in the water, these whole schools of fish just swarm you and they start like pecking at your head. And there's a school bus to go look at, and a motorcycle, a sunken motorcycle that you can go look at. And yeah, that's about it. It's murky, green, nasty ass water. So yeah, I don't recommend it.
I did my open water in Rockaway Sound inside of JFK Airport.
Oh,
With visibility of that, we had to do everything on a rope.
okay. I won't bitch about the quarry anymore.
One of my buddies got hooked by a fisherman. That was kind of funny. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
My
We
open
just
water
didn't
checkout
understand
was that was 1982, I think. 1981 or 82, and in West Palm Beach. Great drift dive.
It would be a better place.
And Wayne, you, this is something I don't think we've ever mentioned on the show, but you were a dive instructor in Cozumel.
I was a dive master.
Dive master.
Worked there for 6 months. Worked as a dive master in the Keys and back in Melbourne, in my hometown, and loved it. I mean, I never did it to become a dive master. I took the open water certification. I thought, yeah, that was great. What else can I learn? And so I went to the dive shop, and Tom, the owner of the dive shop, said, well, we've got an advanced course coming up. Yeah, sign me up. And then rescue, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Dive master, sure, why not? Assistant instructor, okay. And that's where I stopped. Instructor certification is very expensive. Well, at the time I was making $365 an hour, and so it was a lot more expensive than it is now.
Yeah, we did our advanced on that Blackbeards trip. Just because everybody was diving deep. We were already obviously doing boat dives. We did some photography, we did night dives. So we did all of our advanced work there. And I would love to do more, but it's hard being here, and I hate being cold. So I'm not willing to do the quarry anymore. So that means I would have to like travel a lot or move. So one of these days we'll move south, and
Travel's a lot of fun.
Well, it is. And I absolutely love being able to write it off.
That's what I'm doing now. Whenever I send a book to my editor, she's got it for 2 weeks. So what am I doing? I sit here and twiddle my thumbs or go somewhere. So I try to go somewhere where I want to write the next book. Mm-hmm. And so the whole trip's a write-off. Yeah.
Well, Lost Gems, book 4 that I'm working on right now, was supposed to happen in St. Croix, because I went to St. Croix just as I was finishing up Lost Fleet in March, right before the whole COVID thing hit while we were in St. Croix. All the lockdowns and everything. We got out just before they started closing borders and stuff. And yeah, that was originally supposed to be the main setting for my book 4. And then as the story took shape, it just didn't work. The story that I wanted to tell didn't jive up with that location. So that's going to be book 6, I think, is going to be in St. Croix. As book 5 is also forming itself, and it's going to be in Louisiana. So, but it's funny how these stories just kind of form up and take on a life of their own. And they're like, yeah, you were planning to do that. Forget it. Don't even think about it. So,
My
but yeah,
second book was supposed to be in the Keys and Cozumel, but all the action took place in Cuba. And once the characters take the wheel, you just got to let them go.
yeah, for sure. I think book 2, Lost Relics, was probably the one that stuck the closest to my plan for it. It was probably the closest from what I thought it was going to be at the beginning to what it ended up being. Book 3 changed a lot. I shifted locations on that one quite a bit. Book 4 was 100% different than I thought it was going to be. And I still have the final act to write on that one. So
where are things in the recording of book 2?
They've begun a bit. We're planning on getting our first checkpoint to Chris, hopefully by the end of this weekend, the first 10 chapter section. And I've given Chris the timeline of us finishing probably by the end of October. I think it's very possible, especially at Kelsey's current recording rate.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I'm still working full time at the day job, and we are hoping by next fall this time I will be hanging up my Mary Poppins carpet bag and hat, and I will no longer be a nanny. That profession has gotten us through the past 6 years that we've been dating. So I've been able to, I work my 9 to 5, and then I come home, and then I hopefully get about 2 hours in the studio per evening. And then I go to bed, and then I wake up and I do it all again. So we're hoping that it helps for me if I record back to back to back, because what can happen if there's long spaces is I just forget where I was at, what the characters were doing, or even my vocal tone can shift from week to week because I'm a woman and that happens. So I like to try and keep things as tight as I can. So we are hoping the latest by the second week of November, but we're hoping by Halloween weekend, we should have Lost Relic. So we're really excited.
yeah, and then hopefully I'll proof this one a lot faster than I did the first one. And so if I get that back to them by the middle of November to the end of November, get everything, everything updated and mastered, then submit it to ACX and wait, the 12 weeks it takes for them to approve it. Yeah. my last one only, it took, I think it was 28 days.
That's not bad.
Which
right?
really wasn't bad.
It'll get better. The
it
more
will.
you do, the faster they'll start approving them.
Yeah.
Eric-
Once you have a track record of, you got 3 or 4 audio books and you've had no quality issues, then they'll see that and they'll start fast tracking you.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll start moving a little bit faster. I had a request in based on Scott's discussion of pre-orders on the last show. I popped that email off to support, and support didn't pick up the email for 2 weeks. And then they came back with I'm really, really sorry that this fell through the cracks. Scott's going to take this one he's going to take care of this one personally. And within 24 hours, I had the one error that the guys needed to fix. And Brian got that back to me within a couple of hours. We got it uploaded. And within, I think, 6 hours after that, it was approved for sale.
And wouldn't you know that the error that they bounced it back for was at the end of chapter 8 in the last second, because there can't be volume within that last second of silence, 1 to 4 seconds of silence. There was a
Teeny
Just
tiny
a
mouth.
mouth noise?
Yes, they kicked it back for a mouth noise.
Wow.
They've been brutal.
They've
We've
been
had
You're
some-
going to tell me you forgot to cut the keyboard click on the stop. Mouth? No, come on.
Right.
We've had a few issues with that recently where it's at one point I had an author who we were 4 books into a series, and the second three had been released. The second in the series still wasn't uploaded, and they kept kicking it back. So finally we just recorded straight silence because they kept citing superfluous noises within that small area. So we just recorded silence. We plugged that back in, and I think it's still got.
No,
No, it didn't. That's maybe it did.
Oh, no. I thought you were gonna say it was still out there.
No, it still got kicked back, and we were like, what is happening here? And I don't even think we ever really found out what the issue was. I think sometimes
was some sort of extraneous sound. That's the thing they've been calling me out on for the last probably 4 or 5 months, has been extraneous sounds at the beginning or end. And the weirdest part to me is just I know when I first started this game that was not a thing I was keeping track of. And I've only gotten better since I started. So for them to be bouncing back every single title I get now for such a subtle little, click of the mouth or this or that has been it's been frustrating, but it's also just been difficult to work with their completion times. This book that she was just talking about, they bounced it back. We did whatever we needed to fix it. On July 11th, I believe, is when it was submitted again. And it did not get sent to retail or fully approved until 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, if that. So
it was very unfortunate. It was not
brutal.
a situation you want to be in. So that's something we're obviously always working to overcome and to learn the ways of whatever is going on over there and what we're producing. We've had a few different, Brian does work for Voices 1, 2, 3, or is it
Find a Way.
He does work for Find a Way Voices,
which is,
and they have different,
same thing, more or less.
different standards. So just learning everybody's their own personal language and making sure that we're staying within the confines of that.
Yeah, and I uploaded Lost Key to Find a Way Voices the same time that I uploaded it to ACX, and it went live on Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, Google Play, and I think one other retailer within 8 days or something. I mean, it was boom. It was Apple Books was the first one to go through, actually. And Overdrive, it was up on Overdrive within a couple of weeks for the libraries. And so, it cleared their quality instantly. And then, 4 weeks later, then ACX came back with, this little mouth noise.
Find a Way's been interesting for me too. When I first started doing Books Find a Way, that's actually how Arlo Adams and I got linked up together when we did his fan lit RPG series. They were so efficient at first, and they said well, as soon as your title is approved or your audio for the title is approved, you will get your payment direct deposited within 3 to 14 days or something like that. And it was always immediate for me. However, I have one series that I've been doing with them now for probably close to a year and a half now. This author has books coming out of her ears, and
is this Dale?
Dale Meyer is her name. And she's got a bunch of Navy SEALs based books, and it's very strange. They follow the Navy SEALs, but they're all murder mystery, Goonies style situations. But for whatever reason, that particular series, or me working through that particular series with them, they have fallen off the rails. It'll be they'll be one of the whoever that was working with me will say, I'll get back to you by the end of the week or something like that. A month later, I reach out hey, remember 4 or 5 weeks ago when you said you're going to reach out to me? What's up with that? I'm oh, right. Yeah. I'm going to get to you in 2 days or something like that. And it'll keep going on like that, in a brutal succession. Those books have just become a nest egg for me. I don't ever try to rely on them. I don't ever depend on that paycheck for bills to be paid. It's just
It'll just come.
It came in. Look at that.
It's the stimulus check. It'll just come when it comes.
Yeah, still waiting on that guy.
So Christine, have you now that you're hearing their performance, the book you're working on currently, has that affected any of the writing?
Yeah. And it's funny because I've heard you two, Nick and Wayne, talk a lot about how you work together and how the narration has changed how Wayne writes. And so I understood it in theory, but it's like I didn't really get it until I heard them actually narrate Lost Key. And as I was proofing through that, now I hear Kelsey's voice as I'm writing Kate. And I'm much more attuned, even more. I mean, I've always read my stuff out loud when I'm proofing and stuff like that. But as I'm doing it now, I'm hearing kind of the things that I would anticipate would cause Kelsey to stumble, or that just would sound better different ways. And even in terms of, you know, adding dialogue tags or not having dialogue tags and realizing, oh, this is a whole lot of dialogue without knowing who's who, because we had a couple of instances where it's like, it wasn't at all clear who was speaking, but I didn't realize it until they read it a different way than I meant it. So I emailed back, I'm like, yeah, by the way, that sounded really great, but that wasn't William speaking, that was Kate. And we record stuff. So I'm much more attuned to those little details now.
It definitely makes you a better writer.
Yeah.
Whether you hear the voices or you write to your narrator. A lot of times I'm bringing some characters back that normally wouldn't have come back just because I like the way Nick does them.
Oh, another one I've discovered, and after hearing Brian voice them both, I'm realizing that two of my characters are way too similar and are serving the same role in the books.
I know who you're talking.
You know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you? They sound similar. They do the same. There's differentiation between them, but not enough. And so I realized one of those characters is not going to be in the series for the long term. So now I have to figure out how to eliminate one of them.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
There's a lot of really cool ways you can do that.
In a blaze of glory is my only suggestion. In a blaze of glory.
If it's one of the two I'm thinking of, then I can only hope they go out in a blaze of glory.
Or just calmly. And I'm sensitive, so I just don't want anything bad to happen.
No torture.
Okay, if Brian and Kelsey, if you want to see a blaze of glory, read Wayne's fourth book. It's the end of book 4, isn't it, Wayne?
That's Fallen Pride.
Yeah, it's that one, right?
Going out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
With
the wedding?
Yeah.
You got to read that.
One of the smaller characters, actually, he's not a small character, but he's the key character in the book. Jesse was helping him out, and he's actually a real person. And the circumstances of the book applied to him. He was discharged other than honorably, and through no fault of his own. He was just following orders. And so I made him a character, and we started talking, going back and forth about, you know, how this character developed into who he is today and everything. Finally, I asked him, I said, how do you want to go out? He says, send me out in a blaze of glory, man. So I put him in a van with a wedding cake bomb in the back and made him jump off a ramp.
Yes.
It was so well done. I remember reading that and just my breath caught in my throat because it was so perfect, and it was so it was horrible and perfect and real. And I mean, I just remember that was my reaction to that.
That was his choice. I wanted him to live. I wanted him to hook up with Charity, but no, he was done.
And that's sometimes characters will do that. Sometimes characters they don't do what you want them to do. They do what's inevitable.
Well, he wasn't just a character. He's a real life person.
Well,
so that was his choice. I left it up to him.
Yeah.
Well, we've got about 1 minute left. Nick, do you have any final questions?
Do we have any YouTube questions that came in?
Unfortunately, no. We don't have much of a YouTube audience tonight.
Oh,
Everybody's off doing something else. they'll catch it tomorrow.
Well, let's see. I've gone through just about everything I jotted down here that I've been surreptitiously staring off to the side at. Let's see. Oh, I see someone had fun with Gunnel versus Gunwale.
Ah,
Too much fun. Too much fun. Too
draw the
much.
line on that one.
Wait till you get a forecastle.
Oh yeah.
Pokes-
There's one of those in book 3.
There's a postal. Okay, I need this
That's
spelling.
F-O,
coming in
that's
book 3.
FO''C''LE.
All
What
right.
is going
Spelled
on? with
forecastle.
these kids?
Forecastle.
Well, I really appreciate y'all being on the show. Kelsey and
Absolutely.
Brian, thank you very much. Chris, I'd like to
Absolutely.
thank our
Thanks for having us.
sponsors, tropicalauthors.com. If you're looking for a new book, go to Tropical Authors and we'll hook you up. Cinematic book trailers for you authors who want to do book trailers for your books, cinematicbooktrailer.com. And of course, Down Island Press, my publisher, and Pirate Radio. If you like to listen to the music for the cruising lifestyle, go to pirateradiohd.com. It's pirate with a Y. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night, everybody. Nick, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thanks,
night.
everybody.
Have a great night.
We're still streaming.
No, we're out.
Oh, now we're not. Well, it says live here.